interview with New York Magazine, Bernie Madoff claims government itself is a Ponzi scheme. The Madoff scandal has cast a cloud over the New York Mets.
I was able to get some interviews. Unfortunately, I'd say about 80% of those were more the type that would open with, "So did you know Bernie Madoff? An honest person who worked for a crook, or would I rather be a liar who worked for a crook?" If you're a liar that worked for a crook, nobody's going to hire you.
When tackled about his activities, the 70-year-old is said to have admitted his operation was just one big lie.
A legendary broker involved in a huge fraud estimated at $50 billion. Several Facebook groups like this one accuse Madoff of being the worst type of criminal.
Breaking news I want to share with you from New York right now. Wall Street swindler Bernard Madoff is going to prison for 150 years because his life expectancy at 71 years old is 13 years. So what is your view on this? What do you think is a fair sentence for Bernie Madoff?
In December 2008, the financial world was already in chaos from the subprime mortgage crisis, but no one was prepared for what came next. A man once celebrated as a Wall Street legend, a former NASDAQ chairman, and the trusted manager of billions quietly confessed to running the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. His name was Bernie Madoff, and his scam would not only ruin lives, it would shatter trust in the very heart of finance. To understand how Madoff pulled it off, we need to go back. In 1960, he started his own investment firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. At first it was small, but over the decades it grew into one of the most respected firms on Wall Street. Madoff himself became a pioneer, using new computer systems to help modernize trading. By the 1990s, he was chairman of NASDAQ, rubbing shoulders with the financial elite. But what really drew people in wasn't the public side of his business. It was his private investment fund. This fund had an aura around it. You couldn't just walk in and join. It wasn't advertised. There was no flashy marketing campaign. In fact, the more you tried to get in, the harder it became. Madoff cultivated a sense of exclusivity. He let it spread quietly by word of mouth, through country clubs, charity events, and the networks of wealthy families. If you were invited to invest, it felt like a privilege. People would brag about having access, almost like they were part of a secret club. And when the returns came in, 10 to 15%, steady, year after year, it seemed almost magical. No matter how the markets moved, Madoff always beat the chaos. In a world where volatility destroyed portfolios, his numbers looked like a safe harbor. Some investors compared it to finding the golden ticket. There were even stories of people pleading for years to get in, only to be told no. And that rejection only made the myth stronger. The harder it was to invest, the more people wanted in. And if you finally made it, it felt like winning the lottery. For investors battered by uncertainty, Bernie Madoff was a dream come true. And that dream was exactly what he wanted them to believe.
All while defrauding them of more than $19 billion, was arrested and charged with running history's largest ever Ponzi scheme.
Behind the curtain, there was no magic strategy. Madoff wasn't investing the money at all. Instead, he used cash from new investors to pay the old ones, while fabricating account statements that showed fake profits. This was the essence of a Ponzi scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, who ran a similar fraud in the 1920s. But Madoff's version was bigger, slicker, and more convincing than anything before. Banks, hedge funds, celebrities, even charities lined up to give him money. He cultivated exclusivity, sometimes even turning people away, which only made them want in more. The harder it was to invest, the more people trusted that it must be special. By 2008, Madoff's clients believed he was managing $65 billion. In reality, the true money invested was closer to $20 billion. The rest, pure fiction. Let's take a quick break before we dive into the collapse of Madoff's empire. If there's one lesson from this story, it's that you should never hand over blind trust when it comes to your investments. That's where The Alchemist comes in, a tool built on transparency and control. This software shows you exactly what it's doing. It scans the markets 24/7, identifies setups, and executes trades automatically, but you stay in the driver's seat. It's not about hype. It's about having a system you can monitor, understand, and actually trust. Click the link in the description and use code MADOFF for 10% off. Now, back to the story of the biggest con in Wall Street history. The shocking part isn't just the fraud itself, it's how many red flags were ignored. For nearly a decade, whistleblowers tried to sound the alarm. The most relentless was Harry Markopolos, a financial analyst who looked at Madoff's returns and immediately knew something was wrong. He later said it took him just 5 minutes of math to realize Madoff's numbers were impossible and 4 hours to prove it. In 1999, Markopolos wrote a memo bluntly titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." Over the next 9 years, he sent detailed reports and warnings to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, better known as the SEC. He showed them line by line how Madoff's trades couldn't be real. The volume was too high, the profits too consistent. In some cases, he even pointed out that Madoff claimed to be trading stocks on days when the markets had been closed. And yet, nothing happened. The SEC opened small investigations, but they never pressed hard. They interviewed Madoff, but often took his word at face value. They missed chance after chance to expose him. Why? Because Madoff had built an image of untouchable respectability. He was too successful, too connected, too trusted. He sat on regulatory advisory boards. He donated to politicians. He cultivated powerful friends. To challenge him felt unthinkable. When people looked at Bernie Madoff, they didn't see a criminal. They saw a genius. They saw someone so respected that even the watchdogs of Wall Street wouldn't dare bite, and that illusion kept the scheme alive.
Bernard Madoff has just been sentenced for the biggest investment fraud in Wall Street history.
$700 billion bailout plan sending shockwaves through Wall Street. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate.
We're essentially down by 4-5%. We're down over 16%.
Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%. The stock market is now down 21%.
We're now down 43%.
Investors panicked. They rushed to pull billions out of Madoff's fund, but there was no money left. The scheme had reached its breaking point. In December, Madoff confessed to his sons that it was all one big lie. They went straight to the FBI. The very next day, Bernie Madoff was arrested. The fallout was devastating. Thousands of investors lost everything. Charities were wiped out. Celebrities like Kevin Bacon, Kira Sedgwick, and Steven Spielberg saw fortunes vanish. Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel lost his entire foundation's assets, and for some victims, the despair was too much. Several took their own lives. The destruction wasn't limited to his clients. The Madoff family itself imploded. His son Mark hanged himself on the 2nd anniversary of his father's arrest. His other son Andrew died of cancer just a few years later. His brother Peter went to prison for 10 years. And Bernie Madoff? He was sentenced to 150 years behind bars. He died in prison in 2021. Bernie Madoff promised safety, but delivered ruin. His scheme became the largest Ponzi fraud in history, $65 billion of illusion, $20 billion of real losses, and countless lives destroyed. But beyond the numbers, his story is a warning. It shows how fragile trust can be in the financial system, how easily exclusivity and reputation can blind people to risk, and how badly regulators can fail, even with red flags in plain sight. The lesson is simple. When something seems untouchable, that's exactly when it should be questioned. The greatest Ponzi scheme in history wasn't built on genius or innovation. It was built on belief, the belief that Bernie Madoff could always deliver. And when that belief finally shattered, it didn't just take down one man, it shook faith in the entire financial world. Madoff's empire may be gone, but his shadow still hangs over Wall Street, a reminder that the next illusion may already be in the making. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more deep dives into finance and tech. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.